Good morning, my friends. I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day. What I know is going to be a fantastic Friday. It's going to be good for me. I get to pray at the Teachers Institute this morning, praying for the new school year to start. Pray for me as I pray for them. I got a meeting with FCA guys at lunchtime. Going to be a great opportunity to invest in our students this year. And this Sunday, don't forget, we're starting the little apocalypse, Matthew chapter 24, talking about the end times. And I'm telling you, with what's going on in the world today, you need to start paying attention to what the issues are as well as what the scripture says. And so we'll be delving into that this Sunday. So join me as we look at this. Right now, I want to go back to 1 Corinthians 8:11 and deal with the principle here. We talked about this yesterday in the context of what was going on at Corinth. The meat sacrificed to idols, and how these new Christians who had come out of this pagan worship might be caused to stumble when they see a mature Christian going into one of these feasts or eating this meat that's been sacrificed to idols, may cause them to go back into that lifestyle of pagan worship. And look at what Paul says. He says, and because of your knowledge, the fact that you know that it's not sin, the fact that you know that these idols are nothing, and that eating meat sacrificed to them doesn't mean anything, because of your knowledge shall the weak brother perish for whom Christ died? But when you thus sin against the brethren and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never again eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. Now, I want you to think about this. In the context of that day, we can look back and say, we don't have to worry about that. But in the principle that's here, we need to focus hard, because we are surrounded by younger believers who are following our lifestyle, who are trying to model themselves after the way we live our lives. And so if they see us doing something, we know that it doesn't affect our spiritual life. We know that it has no power over us, but it causes them to go back into a lifestyle that they have left behind. They stumble into that sin. Paul says we are sinning against Christ. We do spiritual harm to them. And so what does Paul say? He says, if eating meat causes my brother to stumble, I'll never eat meat again. Now that would be tough for us, right? But what are some of the issues that we may have to deal with? Maybe going to some of the places that we tend to go to because it doesn't mean anything to us, doesn't affect us spiritually. Maybe watching movies that doesn't mean anything to us because it doesn't affect us spiritually. Maybe drinking alcohol and doesn't affect us because, and believe me, I don't drink alcohol, but it doesn't affect you because it doesn't affect you spiritually. Or whatever it might be, listening to music, reading certain kinds of books, those kinds of things that we know does not affect our spiritual lives and does not affect our salvation, but it causes a less mature believer to stumble back into sin, to get caught back up in habits and practices that are harmful to them spiritually. Then we have sinned against Christ. See, you know that age-old question that Cain asked of God, am I my brother's keeper? The answer to that is absolutely yes, we are. We are our brother's keeper. We are responsible for how our lifestyle impacts other believers' lifestyles. And we cannot take our liberty to the extreme and say, hey, I'm free to do whatever I want. Paul said, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient. In other words, God's not going to judge me for doing that. But what if I bring harm to other people? What if I cause them to stumble? What if I keep a lost person from coming to know Jesus by my actions? Then we have sinned against Christ. What a horrible thought that would be, to know that we had affected someone in that kind of way. So I want you to think about this today. Think about this principle. What are some things in your life that maybe you know that they don't affect you spiritually, but they could affect others spiritually? Are there habits that you need to change? Things that you need to do differently? The way you speak, where you go, what you read, what you listen to? Think about that. Paul says, I'd rather never eat meat again than to cause one of these brothers to stumble. It's our responsibility. Be blessed. I'll see you back here Monday.